Before dawn fully names the world, the castle already breathes. It exhales cold stone and old smoke into the pale blue hour, when night has not yet surrendered and morning has not yet learned its shape. Frost clings to the outer walls like a second skin, silvering the seams between stones laid by hands long turned to dust. The towers stand unmoving against the sky, their silhouettes patient, eternal, as if they have learned the art of waiting better than any living soul inside them. Somewhere deep within the keep, a bell stirs. It is not loud at first, only a low iron murmur, pulled slowly by a rope worn smooth from centuries of palms. The sound travels through corridors like a memory remembered by the walls themselves. It slides along vaulted ceilings, sinks into stairwells, and settles gently into sleeping chambers where servants lie wrapped in rough wool and thin hope. The bell does not command. It reminds. Another day has begun, and the castle expects to be served by time once more. In the kitchen below the great hall, embers glow red beneath ash. A scullion stirs them awake with a poker, breath fogging in the chill air. Sparks rise like startled fireflies, briefly alive before dying again. Water is fetched from the well, cold, iron-tasting, and poured into heavy cauldrons. Bread dough, kneaded the night before, is shaped by practiced hands and slid into ovens blackened by generations of meals. The smell of yeast and smoke begins to creep upward, threading itself through cracks in stone and under doors, promising warmth to those who wake slowly. The castle wakes not all at once, but in layers. Servants rise first, quietly, reverently. Their lives are shaped around the needs of others, and they move with a softness learned from years of avoiding notice. Feet pad across rust-strewn floors. Cloaks are drawn close. Hair is braided quickly, without mirrors. In the narrow passages, candle flames shiver as they are carried from room to room, their light revealing walls damp with age and etched with the faint scratches of forgotten hands. Above them, in chambers lined with tapestries faded by time and smoke, the lord of the castle stirs. He wakes beneath furs heavy with the scent of animal and winter, his breath slow, his dreams reluctant to release him. When his eyes open, they find familiar stone and shadow. The same carved chest at the foot of the bed, the same iron-bound door, the same small window that admits light only in careful measure, as if the castle rationed even the sun. He sits up slowly. His body remembers years more than it remembers rest. Old injuries ache in the cold, reminders of tournaments fought, borders defended, oaths sworn too young. A servant waits near the hearth, silent as a prayer, ready with warmed water and folded garments. The Lord does not speak yet. He listens instead, to the crackle of fire, to the distant echo of the bell, to the muted life rising through the stone beneath his feet. When he stands, the floor is cold. Woolen hose are pulled on. Linen is fastened. A tunic follows, heavy with embroidery that tells stories of lineage and land. Finally, the cloak, lined with fur, fastened by a brooch dulled by time and handling. It weighs more than fabric alone should. It carries expectation. It carries judgment. It carries the unspoken truth that many lives will bend or break according to the choices made beneath its folds. By the time the Lord steps into the corridor, the castle has found its rhythm. Guards move along the battlements, boots striking stone in steady cadence. Their breath rises in pale clouds as they skim the horizon, eyes narrowed against the dawn. The land beyond the walls stretches outward in muted browns and grays. Fields sleeping beneath frost, forests holding their breath, roads empty but for the promise of travelers yet unseen eye in the soft light of dawn. The first rays of sunlight creep through narrow stone windows, bathing the cold stone floors of medieval castle in a muted, golden glow. The castle stands quiet for now, its towering walls thick with secrets and whispers. The day's light begins slowly, almost imperceptibly, as the iron bell tolls, its deep, mournful clang echoing against the ramparts. In the kitchens, the scent of freshly baked bread mingles with the sharp, earthy aroma of firewood, the first meal of the day being prepared. The castle's pulse is found in the rhythm of work, in the soft scuffling of feet, the clink of metal, the swish of coarse cloth. The Lord awakens, wrapped in fur cloaks, his footsteps heavy as he makes his way to the great hall, where the warmth of the hearth contrasts with the chill of the stone. He wears a crown of heavy responsibility. Each decision made here ripples through the lives of the people below. The guards take their posts, their faces worn by years of duty, their eyes scanning the horizon. A silent vigil is kept over the land. The low murmur of the castle's day is a blend of duty, survival, and tradition, as ancient as the stones themselves. And as the sun sets behind the hills, the castle's shadow lengthens, stretching across the land, inviting its inhabitants into another night of whispered dreams and duties yet to come. Keys turn in locks, doors open and close. The castle's great hall begins to warm. A fire roars into fullness beneath the wide chimney, its smoke pulled upward into darkness. Long tables are wiped clean. Benches are set straight. At the high table, the Lord's chair waits, carved oak, worn smooth of the arms, patient in its authority. When the Lord enters, conversation softens without instruction. He takes his place not with ceremony, but with inevitability. A bowl of pottage is set before him, thick with barley, flecked with herbs, steaming gently in the cool air. Bread follows, dark and dense, broken rather than cut. He eats without haste. Each bite is a continuation of the same meal eaten by his father and his father before him. Nourishment, yes, but also ritual. Outside, the courtyard fills. Horses stamp and snort as grooms brush frost from their flanks, murmuring comforts in low voices. The smell of hay and manure mixes with cold air and iron. A blacksmith's hammer rings out, sharp and rhythmic, striking anvil like a heartbeat the castle cannot live without. Sparks fly, brief stars born from labor, as tools are shaped and reshaped. Hoes for fields, hinges for doors, arrowheads for reasons not yet spoken aloud. Children dart between shadows, laughter light and fleeting. They chase one another past barrels and carts, their joy briefly unburdened by the weight of stone and rule. Mothers call them back, voices soft but firm, reminding them where they stand in the order of things. Above it all, banners stir. Cloth snaps gently in the wind, colors muted by weather and age. Each banner carries a symbol, lion, cross, tower, stitched by hands that believed in meaning, in lineage, in the power of signs to hold the world together. As the morning deepens, the castle listens. Petitions are brought forward, disputes whispered into ears trained to weigh words carefully. A farmer speaks of blight. A reeve mentions missing sheep. A messenger arrives breathless, boots caked with mud, carrying news folded into parchment and sealed with wax. The Lord listens, fingers resting on the table, face still. He knows that every answer creates another question. Every judgment leaves a shadow somewhere beyond these walls. The chapel bell rings. Its sound is soft in the dawn bell, but no less insistent. In the small stone chapel, candles are lit. Wax drips slowly, time measured in molten gold. Prayers rise in Latin, words learned by heart even when not fully understood. Knees touch cold stone. Heads bow. Faith here is not loud. It is worn smooth by repetition, like the steps leading to the altar. By midday, the castle hums. Food is carried. Orders are given. Armor is checked. Swords are oiled, their steel catching light like still water. In the armory, leather creaks as straps are tightened and loosened, fitted to bodies that know their purpose even when the mind wishes otherwise. The Lord walks the walls. From above, the world looks smaller, quieter. Fields lie obedient beneath the sky. The road curves away like a thought unfinished. He rests a hand on the stone parapet, feeling its cold certainty. These walls have held against siege, against fire, against time itself. They will outlive him. There is comfort in that, and a kind of loneliness. As the sun begins its slow descent, shadows lengthen. The castle prepares again, this time for night. Torches are lit. Doors are barred. The drawbridge is raised with a groan of rope and wood, sealing the world outside until morning's bell remembers it again. Supper is taken. Stories are exchanged. Laughter flickers, brief and necessary. When darkness finally settles, the castle does not sleep. It watches. It remembers. Wind moves through arrow slits. Owls call from the trees. Somewhere, a guard shifts his weight, cloak pulled tight, eyes scanning the dark. Inside, embers fade to red. Candle flames gutter. Breath slows. and wrapped in stone and silence, the castle waits for another bell, another dawn, another day to begin again. The castle rests at the center of the valley, like a thought held too long. From a distance, its towers rise to the morning mist, stone dissolving into cloud. Edges soften as if the world itself hesitates to remember where earth ends and sky begins. The valley breathes gently beneath it. Fields damp with dew, hedgerows dark with night's retreat, a river threading silver through the low ground. The castle does not dominate this land so much as endure it, bearing the weight of seasons without complaint. Mist coils against the outer walls, clinging to crenellations, slipping through arrow slits, pressing its cool breath against the stone. It carries the scent of wet grass, of soil turned and waiting. Inside the walls, sound is muted, wrapped in gray. Even the footfalls of guard along the rampart seem hushed, as if the fog itself listens. In the kitchens, the day begins with heat. A fire is coaxed into life beneath a blackened hood, flames licking upward, filling the room with smoke and warmth. Copper pots hang from hooks, dull by years of use, their surfaces reflecting firelight in distorted shapes. Knives strike wooden boards in slow, steady rhythm. Onions are split open, releasing their sharpness into the air. Roots, turnips, leeks, carrots are washed in cold water that numbs the fingers before being dropped into simmering broth. Servants speak quietly, in fragment of dialect shaped by the land beyond the walls. Words are exchanged like tools, useful, unadorned, worn smooth. Bread is broken from yesterday's loaf and set aside. New dough waits beneath linen, swelling slowly, patient as everything here must learn to be. Above the kitchens, the great hall stirs. Sunlight begins to filter through narrow windows of colored glass, staining the stone floor with muted reds and blues. Dust rises in these beams, turning the air thick with motion unseen. The quiet hum of morning stirs the sleeping castle as birds begin their song, the first breath of dawn drifting through the cracks of the stone. In the stables, horses stamp their hooves in time with the distant roll of thunder, the earth beneath them quivering with anticipation. The lord of the castle, his brow furrowed in thought, rises from his bed of fur, stepping into a world of stone and shadow. His armor is laid out before him, its weight both a promise and a burden. The smell of wet earth fills the air as the courtyard awakens, bustling with the activity of the day. The blacksmith's hammer rings against the anvil, forging weapons and tools that will either protect or destroy. In the kitchens, the fire crackles, its warmth filling the castle's belly. The servants move with practiced efficiency, their faces tired yet resolute. The weight of the castle's day is felt in the small, fleeting moments. The flick of a wrist, the quiet thud of boots on stone, the low murmur of voices echoing through the halls. The lord's gaze lingers on the distant horizon, where clouds gather like a gathering storm. The castle's watchful eye sees everything, knows everything, yet remains ever distant, a keeper of ancient truths, silently bearing witness to the lives that unfold within its walls. And when the moon rises, the castle becomes a shadow, draped in darkness, holding its secrets close until the dawn. Benches scrape softly as they are arranged. The long oak table bears the scars of feasts and councils, its surface etched with rings, cuts, and the faint ghost of spilled wine. The Lord enters without announcement. He moves with the quiet certainty of someone long accustomed to being expected. His presence shifts the room, not through fear, but through gravity. He wears no crown here, only a mantle clasped at the shoulder, his embroidery faded by years of use. His hands rest briefly on the back of his chair before he sits, grounding himself in the familiar weight of the wood. His face is still. Years have taught him that expression invites interpretation, and interpretation invites danger. Yet behind his eyes, thoughts move like water beneath ice. There are borders to consider, stores to measure, names to remember. The valley may seem peaceful beneath the mist, but peace is a fragile thing, easily broken by hunger, by rumor, by ambition. Outside, the courtyard awakens fully. Horses are led from stables, their breath steaming as they toss their heads. Leather creaks. Metal rings softly as tack is adjusted. A falconer stands near the wall, his gloved hand raised, a hooded bird perched calmly upon it. The falcon's chest rises and falls, powerful even in stillness. It knows the sky awaits, but it also knows patience. Children's voices drift upward, chasing one another through the arches, laughter echoing briefly before being swallowed by stone. Their games trace invisible boundaries, never crossing too near the armory, never touching the well without permission. Even play here learns obedience. In the soft light of dawn, the first rays of sunlight creep through narrow stone windows, bathing the cold stone floors of medieval castle in a muted, golden glow. The castle stands quiet for now, its towering walls thick with secrets and whispers. The day's life begins slowly, almost imperceptibly, as the iron bell tolls, its deep, mournful clang echoing against the ramparts. In the kitchens, the scent of freshly baked bread mingles with the sharp, earthy aroma of firewood, the first meal of the day being prepared. The castle's pulse is found in the rhythm of work, in the soft scuffling of feet, the clink of metal, the swish of coarse cloth. The Lord awakens, wrapped in fur cloaks, his footsteps heavy as he makes his way to the great hall, where the warmth of the hearth contrasts with the chill of the stone. He wears a crown of heavy responsibility. Each decision made here ripples through the lives of the people below. The guards take their posts, their faces worn by years of duty, their eyes scanning the horizon. A silent vigil is kept over the land. The low murmur of the castle's day is a blend of duty, survival, and tradition, as ancient as the stones themselves. And as the sun sets behind the hills, the castle's shadow lengthens, stretching across the land, inviting its inhabitants into another night of whispered dreams and duties yet to come. In a side chamber, courtiers gather. They speak in measured tones, their words carefully chosen, each sentence shaped to flatter, to suggest, to obscure. Cloth rustles as they shift, rich wool brushing against finer silk. Rings catch the light. Perfumed oils mingle with the smell of smoke and damp stone. Here, power is not held in swords, but in glances and pauses, and who stands closest to the Lord when he passes. A crow lands on the highest tower. Its black feathers shine against the pale sky. It tilts its head, watching the world below with ancient indifference. To the castle, it is neither omen nor miracle, only a reminder that all things observe, even when unseen. By mid-morning, the mist begins to lift. The valley reveals itself fully. Plowed fields etched into the earth, paths worn by centuries of feet, distant cottages huddled together against the cold. Smoke rises from chimneys beyond the walls. Thin and hopeful, life extends outward from the castle like roots, drawing strength, offering loyalty, bound together by necessity rather than love. A messenger arrives. His horse lathers beneath him, sides heaving. Mud clings to his boots and hem. He bows low, breath still unsteady, and produces a sealed letter from within his cloak. Wax bears another lord's mark, pressed hastily, imperfect. The lord receives it with nod, breaks the seal with practiced ease, and reads in silence. No one speaks. The letter's content are not shared, but the air shifts all the same. Shoulders tighten, eyes lower. The castle understands tension even when words are withheld. At the chapel, prayers offered. The priest's voice rises and falls in Latin, echoing softly against stone worn smooth by centuries of knees. Candles flicker, their flames bowing slightly in drafts no one feels. Faith here is not loud or triumphant. It is persistent. It survives in repetition, in a quiet hope that unseen hands still guide what mortal ones cannot. As the day stretches onward, work continues. Women spin wool near sunlit windows, their fingers moving in practice circles. Men repair a section of wall where frost has loosened mortar. The blacksmith's hammer resumes its steady beat, shaping iron that will outlast the hands that guide it. Even silence is productive here, filled with intent. The Lord walks the inner garden. It is small, enclosed, sheltered from the wind. Herbs grow in narrow beds, sage, rosemary, thyme, releasing their scent when brushed. A stone bench waits beneath a bare tree, its branches etched against the sky like ink. The Lord pauses here, alone, and allows himself a moment of stillness. In this space, he is neither ruler nor symbol, only a man listening to his own breath. The afternoon wanes. Shadows lengthen across the courtyard. The falcon is unhooded and released, cutting to the air in a blur of motion, returning moments later to the falconer's arm. The bird's power is brief, contained like so much else within these walls. As evening approaches, the castle draws inward. Torches are lit along corridors. The smell of supper drifts upward, meat stewed with onions, bread warmed by the fire, ale poured into heavy cups. Voices rise and soften, stories are shared, laughter allowed at small space. Even the Lord permits himself a smile, fleeting but real. When night finally claims a valley, the castle seals itself. The gates close. The drawbridge lifts. Guards take their posts, eyes trained on darkness. Above, the crow has gone, replaced by stars scattered thinly across the sky. Inside, candlelight pools and fades. Bodies rest. Minds wander. The castle does not dream. It remembers. It waits. And in its waiting, it holds the quiet promise that when dawn returns, the mist will rise again. The bell will sound and life, fragile, persistent, human, will begin once more. Evening arrives before anyone calls for it. It slides over the castle walls like a held breath finally released, turning stone from pale gray to deep amber, then to shadow. The sun lingers low on the horizon, caught briefly between tower and hill, its light stretched thin and fragile, as though it might break if asked to stay any longer. The castle absorbs this fading warmth without ceremony. It has learned not to expect generosity from the sky. High above the courtyard, banners stir lazily, their colors darkening as the light retreats. The wind carries the smell of pine from the distant forest, resin and cold earth mingling with smoke rising from hearths within the walls. Evening is not an ending here. It is a threshold. The great oak doors of the hall open with a familiar groan. Their hinges complain softly, iron speaking to iron, announcing movement rather than welcoming it. Inside, the hall glows with candlelight. Hundreds of flames flicker, each one a small defense against the growing dark. They throw shifting shadows across the stone walls, making the carved faces and the pillars seem briefly alive. Watching, listening, remembering. Tables are set. Wooden platters wait, scarred by knives and years. Cups stand ready, thick and heavy, shaped by hands that valued endurance over beauty. The air fills with scent. Roasted meat, warm bread, spiced wine heated gently to chase away the chill. Beneath it all lingers the ever-present smell of smoke and wax, the perfume of life lived indoors. The quiet hum of morning stirs the sleeping castle as birds begin their song, the first breath of dawn drifting to the cracks of stone. In the stables, horses stamp their hooves in time with the distant roll of thunder, the earth beneath them quivering with anticipation. The lord of the castle, his brow furrowed in thought, rises from his bed of fur, stepping into a world of stone and shadow. His armor is laid out before him, its weight both a promise and a burden. The smell of wet earth fills the air as the courtyard awakens, bustling with the activity of the day. The blacksmith's hammer rings against the anvil, forging weapons and tools that will either protect or destroy. In the kitchens, the fire crackles, its warmth filling the castle's belly. The servants move with practiced efficiency, their faces tired yet resolute. The weight of the castle's day is felt in the small, fleeting moments. The flick of a wrist, the quiet thud of boots on stone, the low murmur of voices echoing through the halls. The lord's gaze lingers on the distant horizon, where clouds gather like a gathering storm. The castle's watchful eye sees everything, knows everything, yet remains ever distant, a keeper of ancient truths, silently bearing witness to the lives that unfold within its walls. And when the moon rises, the castle becomes a shadow, draped in darkness, holding its secrets close until the dawn. The Lord enters as the last light of day leaves the windows. His silhouette pauses briefly in the doorway, framed by firelight and shadow, before he steps forward. Conversations soften, not from fear, but from habit. He takes his place at the high table, the weight of his mantle settling across his shoulders like a familiar burden. He does not speak at once. He listens to the room, chairs shifting, breath moving, the quiet clink of cups. These sounds tell him more than words ever could. They tell him who is at ease, who is tense, who waits to be noticed. His gaze moves slowly, resting briefly on each face, acknowledging presence without invitation. Food is served. Servants move with careful precision, their steps measured, their eyes lowered. They have learned how to be invisible without disappearing. A platter is placed before the Lord, meat glazed with fat, herbs pressed into its surface, steam rising gently. He breaks bread with his hands, the crust yielding with a soft crack, crumbs falling onto the table like pale dust. As the meal progresses, conversation grows. Stories are shared, of harvests nearly lost and narrowly saved, of a hunt gone wrong, of a falcon that flew farther than expected before returning. Laughter moves through the hall in brief waves, never lingering too long, never rising too high. Even joy here is careful, contained by stone and expectation. Above the high table, tapestries line the walls. Their colors are muted by age, but their stories remain clear. Battles frozen in thread, saints standing unbroken, kings crowned beneath hands that glow with divine promise. These images watch the living as the living eat, reminding them that every moment joins a longer story, one already woven long before they arrived. Outside, the watch changes. Boots strike stone as guards take new positions along the battlements. The cold has sharpened. Breath clouds the air. A watchman pauses at the drawbridge, resting his hand against the wood, feeling its solid reassurance. Beyond the moat, darkness gathers, thick and unreadable. The Lord rises. The room quiets again, attention drawn without effort. He speaks then, his voice low and steady, carrying easily through the hall. His words are few. He thanks the gathered company, acknowledges the work of the day, the safety of the walls, the grace that has carried them to nightfall. There is no flourish, no promise beyond what can be reasonably kept. Still, his words settle deeply. They remind those who listen that survival itself is an achievement here, one earned daily through labor, vigilance, and restraint. As the meal ends, the hall slowly empties. Courtiers withdraw. Cloaks drawn close eye in the soft light of dawn. The first rays of sunlight creep through narrow stone windows, bathing the cold stone floors of medieval castle in a muted, golden glow. The castle stands quiet for now, its towering walls thick with secrets and whispers. The day's light begins slowly, almost imperceptibly, as the iron bell tolls, its deep, mournful clang echoing against the ramparts. In the kitchens, the scent of freshly baked bread mingles with the sharp, earthy aroma of firewood, the first meal of the day being prepared. The castle's pulse is found in the rhythm of work, in the soft scuffling of feet, the clink of metal, the swish of coarse cloth. The Lord awakens, wrapped in fur cloaks, his footsteps heavy as he makes his way to the great hall, where the warmth of the hearth contrasts with the chill of the stone. He wears a crown of heavy responsibility. Each decision made here ripples through the lives of the people below. The guards take their posts, their faces worn by years of duty, their eyes scanning the horizon. A silent vigil is kept over the land. The low murmur of the castle's day is a blend of duty, survival, and tradition as ancient as the stones themselves. And as the sun sets behind the hills, the castle's shadow lengthens, stretching across the land, inviting its inhabitants into another night of whispered dreams and duties yet to come. Servants clear the tables, stacking platters, wiping spills with damp cloths. The fire is banked, flames coax into a slower, quieter burn. Candle by candle, light is reduced, leaving pockets of shadow where the hall's corners return to silence. The Lord walks alone through the corridors. His footsteps echo softly, measured, familiar. He passes niches where saints stand carved in stone, their eyes worn smooth by centuries of touch. He pauses briefly before one, fingers brushing the cold surface, a habit learned in childhood. Whether he believes in the stone or in the gesture itself no longer matters. In the armory, a sword rests upon a rack. Its blade is clean, oiled, ready. He runs his thumb lightly along the hilt, feeling the leather worn thin by hands not his own. The weapon carries memory, of violence, of defense, of choices that cannot be undone. He leaves it where it is. The chapel is nearly empty. Only a single candle burns before the altar, its flame steady despite the drafts. The Lord kneels briefly, joints protesting, and bows his head. His prayer is silent, shaped by habit rather than certainty. He asks not for victory or favor, but for steadiness, for the wisdom to endure. Beyond the walls, night deepens. The forest becomes a darker mass, its edges dissolving. In the stillness before dawn, the castle is but a silhouette against a vast, empty sky. The world outside remains untouched by time, while within the stone walls, life begins its slow unraveling. The first light of day creeps across the floor of the great hall, casting long shadows upon the tapestries that line the walls. The Lord's servants move with quiet grace, preparing the morning meal, their motions almost ceremonial in their reverence for the castle's traditions. The aroma of warm bread and fresh herbs fills the air, mingling with the damp, earthy scent of stone. The Lord appears, his expression unreadable as he steps into the hall, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. His cloak is heavy with the weight of leadership, the burden of responsibility etched deeply into his face. As the day unfurls, the castle begins to hum with life. The sound of soldiers training, the clattering of metal, the murmur of distant conversations. In the outer bailey, children play beneath the watchful eyes of the guards, their laughter a fleeting reminder of innocence. But beneath this bustling surface lies a quiet tension, an unease that lingers in the air, unspoken and unnamed. The flicker of torchlight dances in the dark corners of the castle, casting fleeting shadows that seem to whisper of long-forgotten fears. Even as life within the castle thrives, its walls hold the weight of centuries, holding memories of both triumph and loss in equal measure. An owl calls, its voice carrying cleanly through the still air. Somewhere, water moves over stone, patient and unhurried. The world beyond the castle continues its own rituals, indifferent to stone and rank. On the battlements, a guard shifts his stance. He adjusts his cloak, fingers stiff with cold. His eyes scan the darkness, searching for movement that may never come. He knows the hours ahead will stretch long and quiet, broken only by the tolling of the bell and the occasional murmur exchanged with a fellow watchman. Still, he remains. Vigilance is its own form of faith. Inside the keep, doors close. Chambers grow quiet. Candles gutter and die. Breath slows. Dreams begin their slow work, weaving images from memory and fear. The castle settles, stone cooling, with creaking softly as it adjusts to the night's embrace. Yet it does not sleep. It listens. It holds the warmth of the day within its walls and the weight of centuries within its bones. Every footstep, every whispered prayer, every unspoken worry lingers here, absorbed into mortar and shadow. The bell tolls the late hour. Its sound moves outward, across the valley, across fields now invisible, across paths that will see footsteps again at dawn. It marks not an ending, but a passage, another day folded carefully into memory. And as the moon rises, pale and watchful, the castle stands unchanged. A witness, a shelter, a keeper of lives lived quietly beneath its gaze, waiting patiently for morning to return and ask, once more, that the cycle begin again. Morning does not arrive suddenly in the castle. It seeps. It slips between the cracks of stone and time, carried on the breath of birds that have learned the shape of these walls better than any map. Their song is thin at first, almost uncertain, threading its way through the cool air like a question. The castle listens before it answers. Stone holds the night longer than earth. Even as the sky lightens, the corridors remain dim, shadows pooled in corners, lingering as if reluctant to leave. Moisture beads along the walls, drawn from the chill, and the scent of damp stone settles into everything. Clothes, breath, memory. In the stables, horses stir before the people do. Hooves scrape against packed earth. Leather creaks softly as a groom moves among them, murmuring words meant only for animals. Steam rises from warm bodies into the cold air, carrying the familiar smell of hay, sweat, and iron. Outside, thunder rolls faintly in the distance. Not yet a threat, only a reminder that the world beyond the walls still has a voice. The Lord wakes alone. His chamber is quiet except for the soft hiss of dying embers in the hearth. He lies still for a moment, eyes open, watching the slow transformation of the ceiling as light finds its way inside. The bed beneath him is heavy with fur and wool, trapping warmth, but his mind has already moved ahead of his body. He knows this hour well. It is the hour when the weight of rule settles most heavily, before voices rise, before decisions demand answers. Here in the fragile calm, he feels both the privilege and the cost of being the one who must stand between order and chaos. He rises slowly. Bare feet touch cold stone, and the chill travels upward, sharp and immediate. He welcomes it. Pain reminds him that he is still part of the living world. Not yet another name stitched into tapestry or carved into marble. He dresses without ceremony. Linen first, then wool, then the leather belt that has known his shape for years. Finally, he pauses before the armor laid out nearby. The armor waits. Its surface is dull, scarred in places, polished in others. Each piece carries a memory of motion, of weight shifting, of breath held, of impact absorbed. He does not don it yet. For now, it is enough to know it is there, waiting like a promise that cannot be unmade. Beyond his chamber, the castle begins to move. Footsteps echo faintly in stairwells. A door opens, then another. Somewhere, a bucket scrapes against stone as water is drawn from the well, its depth swallowing the sound. In the kitchens, the fire is rekindled, flames catching hungrily on dried wood. Smoke curls upward, carrying warmth into spaces that have been cold since nightfall. The courtyard wakes in fragments. A guard stretches, joint stiff, and adjusts his cloak. Another checks the straps on his helm. Fingers numb, movements practiced. The blacksmith arrives early, as always. He sets his tools out in careful order, touching each one briefly, as if greeting old companions. When the hammer strikes the anvil for the first time, the sound rings clear and sharp, cutting through the morning like a blade. That sound carries meaning. It tells the castle that strength is being made, that protection is being shaped from fire and effort, that even peace requires preparation. In the kitchens, bread is slid into ovens. The scent of rising dough mixes with smoke and herbs. Hands move quickly, efficiently, guided by memory rather than thought. No one speaks loudly. The morning has not yet earned noise. The Lord steps into the corridor. His presence is felt more than seen. Servants pause, bowing their heads slightly as he passes. He acknowledges them with a nod, nothing more. He has learned that too much attention disrupts the delicate balance that keeps the castle functioning. Here, hierarchy is not enforced with cruelty, but with distance. He walks toward the courtyard. The air there is alive with smell and sound. Wet earth, iron animals, human breath. Clouds gather low overhead, heavy and gray, promising rain by afternoon. The Lord lifts his gaze to the sky, reading it as carefully as he would a ledger. Weather shapes fate here as surely as politics or war. A young squire struggles with a shield too large for him. The metal slips, striking the ground with a dull clang. He flushes, scrambling to lift it again. The Lord watches for a moment, saying nothing. When the boy finally steadies himself, jaw set in determination, the Lord moves on. Lessons learned without words tend to endure. The training yard comes alive. Swords are drawn, shields raised. The dull thud of wood against wood echoes as practice begins. There is no music here, no glory, only repetition, only sweat, only the slow shaping of bodies into tools meant to protect or destroy. Each movement is a conversation with mortality, spoken without sound. From the walls, the land stretches outward. The Lord ascends the steps to the battlements, his hand brushing the stone as he climbs. The surface is rough, uneven, worn by centuries of touch. From above, the castle's shape reveals itself. Courtyards nested within walls, roofs cluster like protective thoughts, towers standing watch in every direction. He leans against the parapet. Beyond the walls, fields wait beneath the gray sky. Furrows run in long lines, patient, obedient. In the distance, a road curves away, disappearing into trees. That road has brought traders, messengers, soldiers, and grief. It will bring more. It always does. A raven circles overhead. Its wings cut silently through the air before it settles on a nearby serenelation. I end the stillness before dawn. The castle is but a silhouette against a vast, empty sky. The world outside remains untouched by time, while within the stone walls, life begins its slow unraveling. The first light of day creeps across the floor of the great hall, casting long shadows upon the tapestries that line the walls. The Lord's servants move with quiet grace, preparing the morning meal, their motions almost ceremonial in their reverence for the castle's traditions. The aroma of warm bread and fresh herbs fills the air, mingling with the damp, earthy scent of stone. The Lord appears, his expression unreadable as he steps into the hall, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. His cloak is heavy with the weight of leadership, the burden of responsibility etched deeply into his face. As the day unfurls, the castle begins to hum with life. The sound of soldiers training, the clattering of metal, the murmur of distant conversations. In the outer bailey, children play beneath the watchful eyes of the guards, their laughter a fleeting reminder of innocence. But beneath this bustling surface lies a quiet tension, an unease that lingers in the air, unspoken and unnamed. The flicker of torchlight dances in the dark corners of the castle, casting fleeting shadows that seem to whisper of long-forgotten fears. Even as life within the castle thrives, its walls hold the weight of centuries, holding memories of both triumph and loss in equal measure. The bird watches the Lord with dark, unblinking eyes. Ravens are not feared here. They are understood. They remain when others flee. The Lord remains as well. Below him, life continues in its many forms. A woman hangs linen to dry, fingers red with cold. A man sharpens a blade, testing its edge with care. A child pauses in play to watch the soldiers train, eyes wide, imagination already reaching toward a future shaped by what he sees. By midday, the castle is fully awake. The great hall fills with light filtered through high windows. Dust dances in the air. A simple meal is taken, bread, cheese, ale. The Lord eats among his household, not apart. He listens more than he speaks. Words are weighed. Silence is allowed to exist without discomfort. Reports are given. Supplies counted. Repairs noted. A section of wall has begun to crumble near the eastern tower. The well's rope shows signs of fraying. These are not dramatic matters, but they are vital. Neglect here leads to disaster later. The Lord nods, making mental marks where action will be required. Outside, thunder sounds again, closer now. The sky darkens. Wind moves to the banners, tugging at them insistently. The first chill of autumn creeps into the castle, settling like a blanket over the courtyard. The stone walls groan with age, their surfaces slick with the damp of the season. In the kitchens, the smell of roasting chestnuts and stew fills the air, mixing with the earthy scent of the forest beyond. The lord of the castle enters the great hall, his cloak heavy with the weight of his title. He pauses to look at the hearth, where the flames dance in rhythmic bursts, the warmth offering a fleeting solace against the cold creeping in from the ramparts. The day unfolds in a series of small rituals. Training in the courtyard, the dull thud of swords against shields, the scrape of stone against metal. Servants bustle in and out of the kitchens, carrying trays laden with food, while the guards stand watch, their eyes ever alert. Outside, the wind picks up, swirling through the trees, sending leaves scattering across the stone paths. The distant sound of horses' hooves signals the arrival of a messenger, and a quiet ripple of anticipation spreads through the castle. News of war, of treaty of death, always brings with it a shift in the atmosphere. The Lord knows this as he watches the messenger approach, his heart heavy with the knowledge that within these stone walls, every decision carries weight. The moon rises slowly over the horizon, casting its pale light across the castle silhouette, and for a brief moment, the castle stands alone, silent and waiting, as it has for centuries. The smell of rain sharpens, metallic and clean. When the first drops fall, they strike stone with a hollow rhythm, quickly joined by many more. Rain transforms the castle. Stone darkens. Colors deepen. Sound changes. Footsteps soften. Voices carry differently. Water runs along channels carved long ago, guided carefully away from foundations. The castle was built to endure this, shaped by knowledge earned through failure. The Lord watches the rain from a covered walkway. He does not retreat. He has learned to stand with discomfort. The rain beads on his cloak, soaking into the wool. He feels its weight increase, a physical reminder of responsibility accumulating drop by drop. As afternoon fades, the storm passes. Clouds break apart. Light returns, pale and hesitant. Steam rises from stone and earth, carrying the scent of renewal. The castle exhales. Evening approaches quietly. The work of the day slows. Tools are set aside. Armor is cleaned. The training yard empties. Inside, Fires are tended once more, coaxed back to strength. Supper is prepared. The rhythm of the castle begins to soften, preparing for rest without surrendering vigilance. The Lord returns to his chamber. He removes his cloak, hangs it carefully. He sits for a moment, alone, listening to the muffled life around him. He knows that tomorrow will ask the same things of him, that the stone will remain, that the cycle will continue. And so he breathes. As the castle settles into evening, it does what it has always done. It holds. It protects. It remembers, waiting patiently for the next dawn to press its light once more into stone. Autumn arrives without ceremony. It does not announce itself with trumpets or banners, but with a subtle change in the air, cooler, heavier, carrying the faint scent of decay and promise intertwined. The castle feels it first. Stone always does. Its walls, thick and ancient, absorb the season's breath, holding the chill deep within their bones. Morning breaks pale and thin. The sky is a wash gray, stretched low over the valley. Leaves cling stubbornly to trees beyond the walls, their colors muted, rust, gold, and brown. A wind moves through them, shaking loose a few at a time, sending them skittering across the ground like whispered thoughts. Inside the castle, life begins as it always has. In the kitchens, fires are coaxed into being. Flames lick at logs that crack and sigh, releasing warmth and the rich smell of resin. Chestnuts are scored and set to roast, their skins popping softly as they open. A stew simmers, thick with barley and root vegetables, sending steam curling upward to beat against the blackened stone ceiling. Servants move with quiet purpose. Their hands are red from cold water drawn from the well. Wool sleeves are rolled back, stained with flour and soot. They speak little, saving breath for work. Each task fits into the next like a familiar prayer, recited without thought but with reverence. The Lord enters the great hall. His cloak is heavier now, lined with fur taken from winter stores. When he pauses near the hearth, he extends his hands toward the fire, palms open, feeling warmth seep slowly into his skin. For a moment, his eyes rest on the flames, watching them twist and consume. Fire has always been honest. It gives only what it is fed. The day unfolds in small rituals. In the courtyard, soldiers train despite the cold. Breath fogs the air as swords strike shields in dull rhythm. Leather stiffened by damp creaks with each movement. The scrape of boots against stone carries upward, echoing along the walls. Guards take their posts along the ramparts. They pull cloaks tighter, fingers stiff around spear shafts. From above, the land stretches outward in subdued colors. The castle stands at the center of a quiet valley, a silent sentinel to the seasons. In the early morning, a faint mist rises from the earth, curling around the castle walls like a whispered secret. Inside, the kitchen is alive with the sound of early labor, the chopping of vegetables, the sizzle of meats on the fire, and the low murmur of servants speaking in hushed tones. The lord of the castle enters the great hall, his face unreadable. His mind is heavy with decisions. There is a delicate balance between power and duty, between the desires of his heart and the needs of his people. He takes his place at the head of the long oak table, the worn wood beneath his hands grounding him in the weight of his title. As the morning light filters through the stained glass windows, the courtyard is busy with horses, blacksmiths, and the laughter of children running through the arches. Each day is a delicate performance, balancing the needs of those within the castle walls and the land beyond. A falconer stands by the ramparts, watching the birds glide through the air like living arrows, while inside, the courtiers practice their eloquence and politeness, each one vying for favor. A single crow perches atop the castle's tallest tower, its presence a reminder of the fragile nature of life here. A castle, like a kingdom, is only as strong as a harmony within its walls. But as the sun sets and darkness falls, a quiet unease begins to rise in the air. What secrets does the night hold, hidden in the silence? Harvested fields lie bare, their work complete. Smoke rises from distant cottages as families prepare their own meals, their lives bound invisibly to the castle's protection. The wind sharpens. It slips through arrow slits and along corridors, carrying with it the smell of forest and rain. Leaves gather in corners of the courtyard, trapped by stone, their edges curling inward as they dry. Inside, the castle responds. Doors are closed more firmly. Tapestries are drawn tighter against walls to keep the cold at bay. Candles are lit earlier than before, their flames wavering as drafts pass unseen. Shadows lengthen, deepening the castle's sense of enclosure. In the armory, weapons are checked. Steel is wiped clean and oiled, each blade reflecting candlelight like still water. Armor is inspected for cracks, straps for weakness. Autumn is a season of preparation. What is neglected now will fail when winter demands more. A horn sounds from the outer gate. It is low and brief, a signal, not an alarm. The courtyard stirs as a messenger arrives, horse flecked with foam, cloak damp with travel. He dismounts stiffly, boots striking stone. His presence carries a shift in the air, news always does. The Lord receives him in the great hall. The messenger kneels, offering a sealed letter. Wax bears the mark of another house. Press hurriedly. The Lord breaks the seal, without comment, and reads in silence. The hall seems to hold its breath. When he looks up, his expression has not changed. Yet something in the room has. Words are not needed. Everyone feels the weight of possibilities settle, quiet and heavy. War, treaty, famine, death. Any of these could be written on parchment, and all of them demand the same calm attention. The messenger is dismissed with thanks and bread. Life resumes, but differently now. Voices drop. Movements become more deliberate. Autumn has a way of sharpening awareness, of reminding all within these walls that safety is never permanent. By afternoon, clouds gather. The sky darkens, thick with rain. Wind moves through the trees beyond the walls, shaking loose more leaves. The castle prepares instinctively. Gutters are cleared. Doors are checked. The drawbridge chains are inspected. Rain arrives suddenly. It strikes stone with a hollow sound, soaking into mortar and earth. The courtyard darkens, puddles forming quickly. Water runs along channels carved generations ago, guided away from foundations. The castle endures, shaped by lessons learned long before memory. From a covered gallery, the Lord watches a storm. Rain beads on his cloak, soaking into the wool. The quiet hum of morning stirs the sleeping castle as birds begin their song, the first breath of dawn drifting through the cracks of the stone. In the stables, horses stamp their hooves in time with a distant roll of thunder, the earth beneath them quivering with anticipation. The lord of the castle, his brow furrowed in thought, rises from his bed of fur, stepping into a world of stone and shadow. His armor is laid out before him, its weight both a promise and a burden. The smell of wet earth fills the air as the courtyard wakens, bustling with the activity of the day. The blacksmith's hammer rings against the anvil, forging weapons and tools that will either protect or destroy. In the kitchens, the fire crackles, its warmth filling the castle's belly. The servants move with practiced efficiency, their faces tired yet resolute, and the stillness before dawn. The castle is but silhouette against a vast, empty sky. The world outside remains untouched by time, while within the stone walls, life begins its slow unraveling. The first light of day creeps across the floor of the great hall, casting long shadows upon the tapestries that line the walls. The Lord's servants move with quiet grace, preparing the morning meal, their motions almost ceremonial in their reverence for the castle's traditions. The aroma of warm bread and fresh herbs fills the air, mingling with the damp, earthy scent of stone. The Lord appears, his expression unreadable as he steps into the hall, his footsteps echoing in the emptiness. His cloak is heavy with the weight of leadership, the burden of responsibility etched deeply into his face. As the day unfurls, the castle begins to hum with life. The sound of soldiers training, the clattering of metal, the murmur of distant conversations. In the outer bailey, children play beneath the watchful eyes of the guards, their laughter a fleeting reminder of innocence. But beneath this bustling surface lies a quiet tension, an unease that lingers in the air, unspoken and unnamed. The flicker of torchlight dances in the dark corners of the castle, casting fleeting shadows that seem to whisper of long-forgotten fears. Even as life within the castle thrives, its walls hold the weight of centuries, holding memories of both triumph and loss in equal measure. The weight of the castle's day is felt in the small, fleeting moments, the flick of a wrist, the quiet thud of boots on stone, the low murmur of voices echoing through the halls. The Lord's gaze lingers on the distant horizon, where clouds gather like a gathering storm. The castle's watchful eye sees everything, knows everything. Yet remains ever distant, a keeper of ancient truths, silently bearing witness to the lives that unfold within its walls. And when the moon rises, the castle becomes a shadow, draped in darkness, holding its secrets close until the dawn. He does not move away. He has learned to stand with discomfort, to measure himself against what cannot be controlled. The storm passes as quickly as it came. Light returns, pale and slanted. Steam rises from stone and earth, carrying the scent of renewal. The air feels cleaner, sharper. Autumn always strips the world down to essentials. As evening approaches, the castle gathers itself. Fires are fed again. The smell of stew deepens. Chestnuts are cracked open, their sweetness released. Supper is prepared with care, meant to warm bodies and spirits alike. The great hall fills. Voices rise, cautious but grateful. Food is shared. Ale is poured. Stories surface, of harvests past, of winters endured. Laughter comes slowly, then more freely, buoyed by warmth and companionship. The Lord sits among them. He listens more than he speaks, his presence steady. He understands that morale is as vital as walls, that people endure hardship better when they do not feel alone. As night deepens, the drawbridge is raised. Chains groan softly. Gates close. Guards take their positions. Torches flare along the walls, their light pushing back the dark. Beyond the walls, the forest settles, alive with unseen movement. Inside, the castle quiets. Servants clear the hall. Fires are banked. Candles are extinguished one by one. Footsteps fade. Doors close gently. The Lord stands at a window. The moon rises, pale and watchful, casting its light across the valley. Leaves glint briefly as they move in the wind. The world feels both vast and fragile. He rests his hand against the stone. It is cold, unyielding, familiar. He knows that winter will come, that harder days lie ahead. But for now, the castle stands. People sleep safely within its walls. That is enough. As night settles fully, the castle does not sleep. It listens to the wind. It remembers the rain. It waits for morning, holding autumn close like a lesson learned too late, but not forgotten. And in that waiting, it endures. Night claims the castle not with force, but with patience. It settles gradually, like ash falling after a fire has burned low. The sky darkens one shade at a time, blue fading into ink, until the last edge of color is swallowed whole. Stars appear sparingly, distant and cold, their light too thin to comfort. The moon rises late, pale and watchful, casting a weak silver across stone that has known far darker hours. The castle prepares itself. Inside the walls, doors are shut with care. Iron bars slide into place with dull, final sounds. The drawbridge is raised, its chains groaning softly as with lifts from earth, severing the last physical connection to the outside world. The moat lies still beneath it, black water reflecting fragments of moonlight like broken glass. Torches are lit along corridors. Their flames is quietly, feeding on oil, sending shadows crawling up walls and across ceilings. The light is uneven, unreliable, and that is how it has always been. Darkness here is not an enemy to be banished. It is a presence to be respected. In the great hall, the last embers glow. The feast has ended. Cups sit empty. The evening falls, and the castle is bathed in the soft, dying light of the day, the high stone walls catching the last hues of the sun. The thick oak doors creak open, allowing the sound of the world outside to mingle with the hush within. Inside the castle, the air is filled with the mingling scents of roasted meats and candle wax, as the Lord and his guests gather around the table. The flickering candlelight dances across their faces, illuminating tired eyes, weary from the day's labor. There's an air of quiet reverence as the Lord speaks, a deep, resonant voice, each word a reminder of the weight carried on his shoulders. The tapestries hanging on the walls whisper stories of battles won and lost, of knights who once roamed these halls now silent in death. Outside the castle, the night air is cold, crisp with the scent of pine and earth. A watchman stands by the drawbridge, the cold metal of his sword pressed against his side, ever vigilant. The castle, though a symbol of strength, is vulnerable too. Hidden beneath the stoic surface of stone and mortar are fragile lives, delicate hopes, and unspoken fears. The soft toll of the bell rings across the land, marking the hour of rest, but the castle does not truly sleep. Even in slumber, its walls carry the echoes of ancient stories, of lives lived and lost within them. Bones have been cleared away. The tables stand stripped and bare, their surfaces scarred by centuries of use. Smoke lingers near the rafters. Trapped there, reluctant to leave, the hall exhales slowly, its vastness returning now that voices have gone. Servants move through the space one final time. They work quietly, their bodies heavy with fatigue. Cloth wipes wood, ashes swept carefully into buckets. A drop crumb is noticed, collected. Nothing here is wasted. Nothing is left to chance. When they finish, they pause briefly, listening, to silence, to breath, to the low murmur of fire still alive in the hearth. Then they leave. One by one, doors close. Up the stairwells, chambers fill with sleep. Children curl beneath blankets that smell of wool and smoke. Women lie with hands folded at their chests, minds drifting between memory and dream. Men stretch aching limbs and surrender to rest, knowing the bell will come again too soon. Yet the castle itself does not rest. On the walls, the night watch begins its long vigil. Guards pace slowly between towers, boots striking stone in a steady rhythm meant to keep sleep at bay. Their cloaks are drawn tight, collars raised against the cold. The wind moves freely here, unimpeded by walls, carrying the scent of forest and distant water. Each guard knows the pattern of the night, the hours when the cold deepens, the hours when fatigue presses hardest, the hours when the mind wanders into dangerous places. They speak rarely. When they do, it is in low voices, brief exchanges meant to confirm presence rather than conversation. Silence is safer. Silence allows listening. Beyond the walls, the land disappears. Fields dissolve into shadow. Roads vanish. The valley becomes a single, vast unknown. Somewhere in that darkness, animals move. Foxes slipping through undergrowth, owls cutting silently through the air. Life continues, unseen and indifferent. The castle stands against it all. In the Lord's chamber, a single candle burns. He sits awake, long after others have slept. The flame trembles slightly with each draft, stretching shadows across the walls. His armor rests nearby, polished, ready. His sword leans against a chair, its presence felt even without touch. He holds a parchment in his hands. It is not new. Its edges are worn, creased from being folded and unfolded many times. A letter, perhaps, a record, something that refuses to be forgotten. He does not read it now. He only holds it, feeling the weight of what it represents. Outside his window, the moon climbs higher. Its light spills across the courtyard, illuminating stone worn smooth by centuries of feet. A cat moves through the shadows, graceful and silent, then disappears again. Water drips somewhere, a steady, patient sound. The Lord rises. He moves to the window and rests his hand against the glassless opening, feeling the cold air on his skin. From here, he can see the walls, the towers, the watchfires burning steadily. Each flame marks a human presence, a promise kept through discipline and fatigue. He knows their names. He knows the cost of asking men to stand awake while others sleep. He knows that vigilance is a form of sacrifice rarely remembered once danger passes. In the chapel, a lone figure kneels. A monk, perhaps, or a servant who could not sleep. A single candle burns before the altar, its flame reflected in gold leaf and stone. The air smells of wax and old incense. Words are whispered, Latin prayers learned long ago, repeated not for understanding, but for comfort. Faith at night feels different, more fragile, more desperate, more honest. The bell does not ring at this hour. There is no need. Night governs itself. In the armory, shadows lie thick between racks of weapons. Steel catches faint light, edges glinting softly. Helmets rest like hollow skulls, waiting for heads to fill them again. Each piece has a history. Each has been held in fear, in anger, in resolve. They wait now, patient, indifferent. The castle has learned to live with waiting. Midnight passes unnoticed. The guards change again, movement slow but precise. A torch is replaced. A flame flares brighter for a moment, then settles. Somewhere, a man coughs softly, the sound swallowed by stone. The wind rises. It moves through arrow slits and along corridors, whispering in voices shaped by architecture. The castle answers with creaks and groans, with shifting, stone settling. These sounds are not signs of weakness. They are proof of life. In the lower chambers, a baby cries briefly. A mother stirs, murmuring comfort. The sound fades. The night closes around it, gentle but firm. Life continues, even now. The Lord extinguishes his candle. Darkness fills the chamber, complete and immediate. He lies down, armorless, sword out of reach, trusting others to hold the night for him. Sleep comes slowly. When it does, it brings no grand dreams, only fragments, impressions, faces without names. Outside, the moon begins its descent. Stars thin. The sky lightens almost imperceptibly. Night loosens its grip not because it must, but because it always does. The castle senses it before anyone else. Stone cools differently. Birds shift in hidden places. The wind changes direction. A guard pauses, feeling it in his bones. Soon, very soon, the bell will sound again. And when it does, the castle will wake as it always has, with discipline, with ritual, with the quiet determination of a place that has survived countless nights like this one. Until then, it stands, watching, holding, remembering every life entrusted to its walls while the world sleeps beyond them.